reduce the safety issues associated with biases caused from radiology image interpretation. So one of the ideas that we at LifeImage had was, what if you brought the concept of clinical epidemiology into actual clinical care, specifically talking comparative effectiveness, which means that what if you could match patients who look similar so that during interpretation or during variability monitoring, you could actually identify if you were actually missing potential areas of interest in a patient's image. So here's an example of an actual screenshot to give you what it looks like. So you're looking at the context within our LifeImage UI, and you're looking at one particular patient. And within that patient, you're able to identify other patients who look similar. Our matching algorithm behind the scenes is using BigQuery. And when you click on other patients with similar conditions, you are actually going through billions with a B, medical images, that is at petabyte scale. And what you actually see is other patients that look similar to the patient that you're looking at. And it will actually identify what are some of those matching algorithms looking like, which means, is there a match on genetic information? Is there a match on family history? Is there a match on medications? Is there a match on pre-existing conditions? The holy grail, of course, is doing a match at an actual active pixelation level that we are working on Google for next year. So how are we actually using this information? And what is our function within Google Healthcare API? The biggest piece is moving information across thousands of hospitals into a central repository. Not an easy feat, not at all. We are actually at the end of that journey. As of last week, we have moved pretty much our entire data warehouse from across a third of the United States into Google Healthcare API, number one. Number two is, how do you write queries at petabyte scale with sub-second response times? Because LifeImage is a point-of-care solution, used in ICUs, inpatient, ambulatory, stroke centers, etc., across the country, physicians have very little patience in response times. So for us, minutes are not enough. Seconds are too late when you're a stroke patient. So sub-second response times are incredibly important for us. So we are in the journey of testing that right now. And as of about 72 hours ago, we were able to write a query across 2.6 billion images with a response time of less than half a second. So that is the first milestone we've achieved. We could not do this on Amazon. We could not do this on Azure. We could not do this on any of our proprietary platforms. We've tested out, and I have incredibly deep notes on any of these platforms and how they're used, and I'm happy to share them. The second milestone was, how do you connect the imaging data sets with other data sets, which means I'd like to provide better intelligence to providers, to patients, to radiologists, by connecting information to EHR data sets or medical claims data sets, etc. So I needed to tokenize the LifeImage data set. Once you tokenize millions of patients, our master patient index literally represents over 100 million people. It can actually connect with other medical claims data sets. So the plan is, as the next part of the journey, is how do I connect with Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance data sets? I can't do that in AWS because the data sets are all disparate. What we are doing with Google is we're bringing a lot of this information together because Google Healthcare API has the ability to essentially marry standardized DICOM variables into a superset and marry those superset with other variables with medical claims data or clinical data or genomics data. So now I, as LifeImage as a company, don't have to do the grunt work of marrying these data sets because that work is already done for me. And the third piece to the equation is, how do you actually distribute this information? So writing a query and getting a response is one thing, but writing a query, getting a response, and distributing that response globally as a self-learning, machine learning algorithm is where the magic is. What if one of our customers in Hamburg, Germany, that we went live with last night, says, I'd like to see how many of these patients exist outside of Germany. how does my patient compare with patients in the United States, Canada, Africa, etc.? And that is the magic that we are actually doing in production in live with Life Image. More than happy to chat with any of our existing customers, talk to you about timelines and talk to you about notes of lessons learned. But this is the beginning of our journey with Google, and for the remainder of 2019 and getting into 2020, there is a lot more excitement stuff that Life Image is going to bring to US and global. Thank you.